Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode. The heavenly carrot at the end of the enlightened stick. I wanted to write stick of enlightenment, but there wasn't enough room. This idea of the carrot and the stick is a very old idea. I think many people don't even know it anymore. I think it has passed the space of man's mind to some degree, the metaphor. But really, what it is that back in the day, in order to get a carrot, or what am I saying? In order to get a mule or a donkey to go forward, they would put a stick in, connect the stick to the back of the donkey, and connected to the stick would be a rope, and to the rope would be connected a carrot. And this donkey would endlessly chase this carrot, you know, trying to find it but never reaching it. And I feel for many human beings that they open up towards a sensitivity to true living. Many people in the mystical path, I feel, are at this station where they are chasing something, chasing. when they're chasing, when they're chasing something that they cannot reach, like chasing a paradise that is in front of you, but you cannot enter it. This carrot on the stick situation, there is a way the mule can get the carrot. Excuse me. Yeah, so pretty much I want you to envision that somebody desiring something beyond this world is like a carrot and they're chasing it like a donkey. What does this donkey do that's chasing this carrot that it can never reach? What do human beings do? What is the algorithm? What is the solution to a human being that is chasing something that it cannot get? Okay, whether it's the afterlife, whether it's something in this life, whether it's something before this life, whatever you're chasing in this world, there's based on the number of eyes we have, there's many things we're chasing. And I personally feel many things are chasing us, but it's just that they're not it's like the world is like it has endless dimensions, but we are still perceiving the dimensions of it that have ends. That mystical, you can say, problem. I guess this episode is for a certain mystically minded audience. You may have felt something from your inner realms and your outer realms, or you may have felt something from your outer realms and your inner realms. Either way, the human being, after living a life as an object and attaining the lessons of the objective realm, they will move on to the inner realms. In the inner realms, it's not about the self changing, it's about the world changing. The moment the person realizes that if their view on the world changes, how their self is in the world changes, there comes this recognition that the only way that the donkey, the mule, chasing that heavenly carrot, can attain the carrot is Literally, like how yogis go sit in caves, the donkey, the mule, has to stop moving in the dimensions it is moving and literally sit down on the ground. Do you know this? That donkey that's chasing the carrot, it just has to lie down on the ground. The carrot it falls on the ground. It just moves closer to it while it's on the ground and it eats it. Right? So what that means is some problems, they do not have solutions in a certain dimension of consideration. But if you change your angle to the moment, you change your dimension, you find the solution. And if you notice in many of these talks, that's what I'm doing, where it's like a person can hold an object in their hand, they could look at it from different angles. I have realized that an attributeless attention can look at subjectivity, could look at reality in endless ways, you can say. We awaken to the world, or we awaken inside a world, but could man be the dream? Could we be the dream of the galactic sector, the cosmic sector? Albert Einstein says, you cannot solve a problem from the same level of consciousness that created it. So you can say that the mule cannot get the carrot with the same state of consciousness that sees the mule incapable of getting the carrot. Jacques-Yves Cousteau says, people protect what they love. And if we do not protect our minds from their own rage, then we have not loved our world to even love ourselves in. I think the most important ability and skill a human being can have is looking around with eyes open in that moment. When I think about it, it's actually mind-blowing that we have human beings chasing moments of existence that they are not existing in, chasing moments of experience that cannot be held. The Sufis would say, be grateful for what you get and what you don't get. They would say a Sufi is grateful for both because the Sufi has realized on some level the world is just being active. That means imagine a person, two people in a park, one of them's listening to the other, and let's say the other is speaking a language the person doesn't understand. Then the person is listening to not someone who has meaning or comprehension. It's just a moment where the person sees life is moving in an unknown way. And if you cannot animalistically engage anything, literally not jump up or, let's say, react like an animal to things, you're going to notice your mind has a processing time. Honestly, I would say human beings, they need to look at something for at most maybe a minute and 30 seconds without any opinion, just looking at something. It's like there's an art to looking, you know? I don't mean like looking through a telescope or or a sniper rifle. I mean looking in the sense of being there first. You look from through your being. There's a way you can see things by just going into a space and just being there, and the intelligence processes the room. I have gone in rooms where I knew people had fought in that room, like anger was in that room, and I asked and I checked, and I was correct. you know this happened when I was young. Even if there's a person in a room who storms out of the room, even if a door was banged shut, somebody's like, I'm out of here. Bah! Like the door slams and there's nobody in the house. I mean, that would make sense. But imagine the guy slams the door, leaves. Now somebody new comes into that environment. The moment they hold the door, they will feel something. For me, it's strange. It's not that I feel memory is human, is for the human being. I feel memory is a quality of the plane of existence. That means I think this world of ours is multidimensional and it's processing itself from a different world. Just like our brain does not have access to the outer realms, it's inside the skull, you know? Sorry, not access. I mean, the brain is, we don't see the brain, but it is, how would I say? There's a point in life where the efforts of human activity will slow down. If you're young, you haven't noticed how it's going to slow down. If you're not young, you're going to wonder now how in the inner realms it's going to speed up. And there's a way for both. I will share a story for you with you. Uh, this story, I gotta show you the picture of who the story is for. It's for this guy. This guy, his name is Rishi Vyasa. He is someone whose eyes I have felt I have always understood. And here's another picture of him. Pretty much this guy, back in the day, wrote 18 books called the Puranas. And after writing these 18 books on giant leaves or something, or maybe carving them on wood, I don't know. But like, I think it was giant leaves when I read it last. But Rishi Vyasa, after writing these 18 books back in the day as some like spiritual nomad in the forest, he wrote 18 books on the, I believe, metaphoric value. There's metaphoric value. I read some of those books. There's metaphoric value in those books in Pretty much he writes 18 books, and at the end of it, there comes an angel. An angel through human form comes to Rishi Vyasa. And the angel says, and because after writing these 18 intuitively commanded books, you know, pretty much sharing the libraries of the inner realms with the outer realms, Rishi Vyasa was not content. He was not satisfied. He still felt like the mule who did not get the carrot at the end of the stick. What happens is that angel through human form comes to Rishi Vyasa and says, Rishi Vyasa, you will not feel complete until you write about your love for the truth. And Rishi Vyasa is like, no way, man, no way. And what Rishi Vyasa does is he writes the Srimad Bhagavatam. He writes something so ingenious, in it a conversation. Like literally, he was so ahead of his time, Rishi Vyasa. It's as if he was from another dimension. He was just visiting here. And in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where Arjuna and Krishna are in dialogue, where a man in a battlefield, an archer, who is about to, fight this army, who doesn't want to fight this army filled with his relatives or something, you know. Krishna tells Arjuna, I am the conqueror. I am time, the destroyer of worlds. What that means is every human being, every human activity, every moment of joy or sorrow, love or hate, or kindness or savageness, or neo-kindness, neo-savageness. Krishna tells Arjuna, those who follow deities, those who worship gods, specific gods, in their afterlife they will be conducted by that god. If you play around in your material conscious waking state with notions of devotional service to a form in the unknown, a specific form, then that form has captured most of your attention. So think of it this way, that whatever you receive in this world is being paint, which after this brush is gone will be utilized again in some way. Arjuna, oh sorry, and just to finish that point off, in the Bhagavad Gita it says, if you believe in the one and only inconceivable, because you see, many people think that they say this is the difference between monotheistic religions and polytheistic religions. That monotheistic religions, everything is God, comma, S. I remember reading a thesis paper on this online. God, comma, S. Everything is God. So you go speak to a religious man, you're like, who owns this land? Or who owns this? The religious person, if they're really religious, if they've understood their religion, they'd be like, it's all God's, man. You know? You think we own this world? But if you go to the polytheist, you say, who owns this? The person would say everybody, because they would say God is in everyone. Everybody is God's, plural. So I am telling you, we're just different creatures on a rock in the middle of nowhere, playing with our definitions of energy. But while we're playing with our definitions of energy, we are noticing that experientially there is a relationship, a living relationship. You know, this life is not a school. This life is not an educational planet. And those people who think it is, they miss out on what else it could be. Because it's not here to just be happy tutelage. This sometimes I get very angry, not at happiness, the concept of happiness, like it is important happiness, but I get angry at those people who just want to be happy their whole life. Like it doesn't make sense. What are you, a robot? You know? The whole point of life is that it has elevations. You think a pilot pilots in the sky, you think the airplane is only in one elevation? No. In this reality, we experience various elevations, various states of mind. Sometimes I've looked at epigenetical factors, like, for example, you see there's some people currently in 2020 who, for them, the transformation of their mind has a chemical means. That means they're trying to use objects to transform how they are a subject, And there are some people who are using subjects to transform objects. It's so next level. It's so next level, the world we're living in. I'm just saying that the epigenetics comes in, that talking to a group of people may be equivalent as a psychedelic experience. I'm not joking. Living in society, Terence McKenna, the scholar, was saying, culture is a mass hallucination. That means we're hallucinating our values. This life is very easy. You open your eyes, you pretty much don't do anything, you look around, and after you have looked around, as you are, the realm as it is engages you. So the whole point of us treating ourselves like antennas and changing the signals, where we suddenly see the polytheistic dimension or the monotheistic dimension. I even say there's a void verse. I mean, I see four dimensions to this realm. Religion has pretty much all of religion and mystical practice. They have just been focused. I mean, not mysticism, I won't put in the same box, but like religion, um, it's all been religion is trying to take reality from duality into a singularity. For example, Zen and various mystical traditions, they're trying to take it to the void. And there are some people who are not trying to reverse engineer back into non-duality. They actually accept their dualism and they attempt the infinite. And the karma for those who attempt the infinite is much faster than those who attempt the non-dual. Because now the phase of the realm is one of participation. That means you're co-piloting. I could tell you my relationship with my intuition is like this. In the conscious waking state, I am the pilot. In any other state of consciousness, even in a dream, in the dream state, if I am the pilot, it becomes very clear. I can move. Any moment where I can't move, the co-pilot is moving. The co-pilot is the world moving the self. The pilot is the individual, is the self moving the world. So when it comes to studying the inner realms, the psychological disposition of the human being, we're going back to a way where the psychology hasn't told its story yet. So at most, we are the pure presence of energy and consciousness. We are pretty much energy that can't be created or destroyed. That is attention. So you can say if there is 0.00, whatever amount of zeros you want, 1% chance that our attention is an energy that cannot be created or destroyed, fear was the hallucination. Perhaps the argument is not that man is eternal because because man is eternal. We can say that the world doesn't die. It can't. Just like existence exists. You see, the same notion of energy cannot be created or destroyed. But it transforms from one form to another. Pretty much, that's the explanation of reincarnation. An attention that dwells, you know? life to life, as if lifetimes for a multidimensional being is like changing clothing. You're like, oh, individual existence, like 60 years as a human being. Let's try this out, They asked this being, this liberated person, why did you enter this realm? And he's like, yeah, they had a discount. Can you imagine an incredibly realized being? They're like, why did you come to this plane, to this dimension? And the realized being is like, I noticed they opened up a bubble tea store. That's why I incarnated to just taste bubble tea. That's one thing the gods don't have. Because I think about it. Man has tried to understand things through the method of dividing and conquering. And you can say we have divided the world in order to conquer it through language. And we have named it. And we've taken the name seriously, and we're fighting over what we think our inner realm's accuracy is, rather than actually being like neutral players, like soccer players on the field listening to the coach. You see, like there's something about this in sports. This is kept alive, but that in teamwork, it's not about what the person does. It's about how the team works. I'll give you an example. Something happened. This is a personal story. This was when I was 14, and my family had moved back from Toronto to Iran, and I was attending this school called Tehran International School in Iran for some years, and it was like this Swiss-based English teaching kind of, because I'd lived in Canada in my youth, and then suddenly went back to Iran. I couldn't go back to a normal like Farsi school. So, anyways, I remember going into this. This is me being 14, and the whole school was a bunch of frustrated kids from all around different countries. Like I could tell you, my classmates were other Persian kids who some of their parents had gone to Sweden. Something had happened. They had come back. You know, so so many people from different parts. So even the ambassador of Nigeria's son and the ambassador of Egypt's son were my classmates. So I remember, like, once we went to the ambassador of Egypt's house in Iran at that time, at that year when I was 14, and I remember we played in this giant house. So, anyways, the story I want to share with you is that we were 14, and it was like the whole, pretty much the only thing activity people would do is they would wait until recess. Everybody in the school, in every grade, it was 1 to 12, they would wait in recess for what do you call it? Guys, I'm gonna do something next level. I'm gonna actually show you maybe the school I went to in Iran. I honestly think the picture of this story I'm gonna tell you when it happened 14, it could be there. So just hang on. This is gonna be so cool. Oh my God! Thank you, Google. Oh my God! The school is here. I'm gonna show you like wow, wow, wow. There we go. There we go. Perfect. I'm sharing with you guys a fragment of my childhood here. Where's the court? Okay, whatever. Here, so guys, look at the picture in the wallpaper. Whoever's listening. All right, we gotta say excuse me to Rishi Yasa. Okay. This was the school. This is it. This was the school. The exact place. This exact place. Okay, the picture isn't that clear, but this was my school. So imagine a 14-year-old me. This is, you see this field here, this plastic field right there. Right there where the edge of the field is. The event I'm telling you happened exactly here. Okay, so I remember I was 14 and I was in my whole class had decided, like, here's the thing, we had this physical exercise class where pretty much the teacher didn't know English, so the teacher would just drop a ball in the field and kids would just play soccer the whole time. The teacher was so chill. The teacher would just say hello and then football and then throw the ball, you know what I mean? And so now, the thing was, the teacher was absent. Anytime the teacher was absent, a kid would go to the principal's office, get a soccer ball, and for the 2 hours, without any sort of specific physical exercise curriculum, we would just play in this field. So now we knew a teacher, the physical exercise teacher wasn't there that day, so everybody was so excited to go on this plastic field where usually it's filled. The recess was the same for all the classes, so the bigger grades would usually come and take the field. Now look at what happens. Imagine a classroom of 20, 14-year-old kids walking into this field. The entrance was at the edge of the right bottom of the picture. The entrance to the field was there. Okay, so we walk in there, and I walk in there, and suddenly there's these three psychopaths, literally psychopath, grade 11 kids at the time, you know? And this kid goes apeshit and starts like a video game, punching the whole classroom. Can you imagine? Can you imagine, like, being like, just literally like whack-a-mole, punching all the kids in the classroom, right? So this kid goes in, I was like the fourth person, he hits me too. You know, and I remember he hit some of my friends and one of them was crying and I just walked behind him. I remember he hit me. I just walked behind him and he's still hitting, you know? And then he stops and he goes with his two friends and he laughs and I'm just looking at the back of his head. So I'm literally this 14-year-old kid, bunch of the class, the guy went apeshit, okay? I go behind the guy and I'm standing, and guys, this was the most intense moment of my life, I'll tell you. Not intense moment of my life, but at the time it was the most intense moment of my life. Oh man, I'm getting too excited sharing this story. So okay. I think some people are like, Mr. Within, what are you talking about? But I'm going to share this. Because I don't know, in the future my kids may hear this one day. So you see this court? This kid who hit everybody, this 11-year-old kid, he's standing right where the red circle is. He's standing there, and if you look at the corner of the like yellow field, the edge to the left of it, a lot of the kids were crying there for some reason. They were there. I was behind the guy who was standing in the red circle looking at people in the corner, right? This guy who went apeshit and started hitting people. I remember I was like one of the fastest runners in the class. What I do is I run what you don't see in this picture is, you see where the Mr. Within title is? Over there is a staircase. There is a staircase to the side of this field that goes upstairs, and then it has a way where it's like runs, you go up straight and it comes to the front of the school where the principal's office is. I'm this 14-year-old kid. I go and with the palm of my hand slap this kid who hit the whole class at the back of his head. Like, let me tell you how. Like, you know how somebody runs? Imagine sprinting and slapping, you know? So I sprint and I slap this kid on the back of the head and I start running. And I just hear the kid shouting behind me. I run to the stairs. I feel him literally chasing me. I run straight to the principal's office. So literally I hit him in the head And I run to the principal's office and he chases me towards the principal's office. And that was an intense moment, you know? Yeah, there was a lot of messed up people in that school thinking about it. But everybody was angry. Like everybody in that school was frustrated that they had gotten a better glimpse of a different cultural freedom and then suddenly brought back, you know. But anyways, it was an intense situation. There were so many fights that would happen in that school. There were so many fights to a point where grades, classes would fight. Like something to a point where there was, so our school was here. Above it, there was a ramp to this other school where they were trying to integrate the people who no longer wanted to go back to outside of the country. You know, so that means there was a school for people to just learn Farsi, for example. And I remember our schools would fight, or whenever there would be like a person from grade 12 in our school fighting with a person in grade 12 from that other school, the both schools, like a war, would come literally shouting, and it would literally be a school war, you know? Because there is this notion, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Okay, what that means is I'll give you an example. Imagine two siblings are fighting, but then somebody comes and hits one of the siblings. Both siblings go and beat the shit out of them. You know. So it's one of those things where in like there was a strange like toughness of, all right, it's like violence can happen, you know. But at the same time, there was also allegiances, allies. You know, it was a strange school. Definitely a strange school. So, anyways, guys, I talked about that too long. I think let's go back to the topic. So, anyways, guys, one thing I gotta say is the whole point of me saying that the heavenly cared at the end of the enlightened stick, because I went through, I think, sometimes I look at the world and I feel soul patterns are being expressed and they're leaving. You know, I feel like it's like there's certain patterns entering the world and then they leave. I feel, I don't know, I feel I managed to realize what a mystic was before the concept becomes obsolete. And you gotta stop searching for anything, because the mere action of searching for something that you feel you don't have is telling the world that you don't have. I'm telling you, in this life, don't walk as if you have already lost. Don't walk as if you have already fallen. Don't walk as if you have already been defeated. You see, the whole point of victory is that it's unknown. Nobody ever knows how it's going to turn around. This is why those who abide by the honesty of their inner realms, they get to see their karma. But those who are dishonest get to see the karma of something else. That means if we had this mentality where no karma was the best outcome, and then the person having karma wasn't a good outcome, you can say before having no karma, there would be a view of you experiencing your own karma. And sometimes the moment has its own instruction. You know, we are vessels for history. Sometimes I'm like, oh my God, does the planet need human beings so it can write history? So I am telling you, I found the way, but this way cannot be found. That's the whole point of it. That it's that moment in life where you realize nobody has the responsibility other than yourself to move your eyes. And when you understand this, you meet the unknown. And when you meet the unknown, there is the most complex moment of life there. What do you do with it? What do you do with that which has appeared to you as extrasensory? What do you do with that that has appeared to you transcendental, beyond the void of this limited world? It is now the era of the advanced communicators, and then it will be the pilots calling. Right now, we don't realize it. Right now, people are in the passenger seat of belief systems rather than being in the driver's seat of direct experience. You know, we have forgotten the value of our eyes, that they were world generators, not just world consumers. You know, sometimes a desire can be a broken world that could never get fixed. There is something like that. Because I wondered about it, guys. So many religions and mystical traditions, they say, they give a commentary on desire, and they're like, renounce your material desires. This realm is a simulation. Just like a child touches, let's say, a knife or a lighter or something, and the parents like, put it down. Do you know, for me, it felt like the yogis, you know, the mystics, the rishis, um, the dervishes of the world, they were pretty much looking at physical existence, and they're like, don't touch it, put it down. You know, they were like, don't have that materialistic desire. Don't get entangled in what never was you. When you put down the weapon you have held so long in your hand, when you put down the attitude you have held so long in your mind, when you put down the notion of a defeated realm, you just put it down, you know, just like a hat, you take off your hat. Just like a coat, you just take off your coat. Do you know how many times, by noticing the sensitivity of life in the moment, do you know, I have taken off my attitude? Sometimes when I speak to those who are, of course, in an elder position, I take off who I am. I take off my jacket. It's like, you know, back in the day when a lady would enter the room, you would take off your hat, you know? There was a sort of acknowledgement of the grace at hand, you know. Pretty much the strategy is don't chase what you can't see. That's pretty esoteric noobery. You know, that means for me, when I see esoteric societies, I'm like, oh my God, look at these noobs. Look at them still playing with the language like it's Lego. You know, for me, people who are interested in magic, you haven't understood the world yet. You haven't even understood who you are yet. You know, you're playing. You're playing with a toy, of a subjective toy. That's magic. You know, magic is language's ignorance. Enlightenment is language's clarity. You see, that is why the mystic is not a magician. The mystic is not anyone. The mystic is the human being that has noticed that if the body will perish, then the mind must complete its journey. That the mind must ask questions that it has never thought to ask, that it must walk in rooms it has never thought exist. That is the journey of the human being, that we are traveling in the updates of our eyes. Rise, mankind, rise. Because truth, what if it's not neither an object or a subject? What if truth is a viewer? What if truth is a view? As Kabir says, "Disciple, tell me what is God." "He is the breath inside the breath," shouts the disciple. "He is the breath inside the breath." The unconditional truth inside the conditions of truth. Our work will become like the wind, the most excellent administration of form. You know, even the Christ says to be in the world and not of it. And even Lao Tzu says after the leader's task is done, the people will say we did it ourselves. Because the leader was the people. Because you can see that who are you living for? I have asked this question so many times for myself. Especially moments where I feel I look down on myself. It's if you ideologically look down on yourself, you suffer. But if you experientially look down on yourself, you can't suffer. The experience is above the below. For regardless of what man can say, the letters of the alphabet are not enough to contain the ever-present. People don't realize it, you know, life has a fragility to it. That means any day that you don't choose to step in the new, sometimes when I sleep, I'm like, oh my God, that's like 8 hours. I mean, I definitely don't sleep 8 hours, but like, but I'm like, imagine like the typical person, it's like you sleep and you're like, oh my God, for 8 hours, I have no scan and surveillance of my existence. Do you know how intense that is? That means when a person sleeps, they are trusting the void. For me, it's kind of fascinating. We go to sleep so easily, but then we're so scared of death. Oh no, we're gonna stop being here. But technically, experientially, when we sleep in deep sleep, we stop being here. So that's the significance. Language has made us act like dry leaves that can crumble, but the mind has a significance that surpasses the elements. It's as if sometimes I ask myself, why should atom? Why should there be evolution? Why? Why should there be the continuity of memory? For me, evolution is like traveling through an apocalypse of who you were before. I feel the carrot, the paradise that people seek, are chasing, that carrot is language and it's hollow. It's hollow when you chase it. When you chase a butterfly, you're a step behind. But when the butterfly comes to you, then time has come to you. That means you don't need to even make the time for the experience. I'm telling you, it's like they say this, when the student is ready, the master appears. Why? Because the student can understand. That's it. Your antenna signal is picking up the rhythms of, you can say, the celestial games behind the skin of the linguistic simulation. Because I have thought, like I remember seeing the film Hunger Games, and they had this notion of sponsors. By the way, guys, if the music bothers the viewers, and there's a mass vote, I can turn it off. And, for me, it doesn't matter. I listen to the music either way. But I don't know. But I know that I don't know. So I don't know if I don't know. I just thought of a term where if the sapien relates to the evolutionary body, maybe we should name ourselves, instead of like Homo sapiens. This is going to sound a bit silly, but I think it's workable. Galacticus Mindus. No, it doesn't sound that. When you realize you are holding nothing in everything as much as you're holding everything in nothing, reality can't suffer anymore. You suffer as long as there's a punching bag. But when you are no longer an ideological self, a thought, you cannot touch the self. That means I'm telling you there's something about the simultaneity of our outer objective realms and our inner subjective realms, that the inner subjective realm cannot die because it is not it has no body. Your mind is not an object. Your mind at most is a conscious event. That means we don't even know what subjects are. We're just, because we relate to objectivity, it's like technically we have no idea what thought is. Because we treat it like, all right, I had this thought and I had that thought, but really it's not an objective phenomenon to be an object. It's just noticing a subtler component to how the moment is like multiple rooms. So I will tell you right now as I'm speaking, I do consider myself in multiple rooms. I don't consider all these rooms to be dimensions, but I consider that it starts from the objective realm and then it goes from the visible rooms to the invisible rooms I'm in. The more invisible the inner room gets, the more you're actually being a mind that is moving the realm with your attention. So behind your eyes, you are attributeless attention. In front of your eyes, you're everything that has an attribute in your attention. So if you want to define yourself in the outer realms, yeah, we're all individuals, high five to that. But when we want to define ourselves in accordance to the inner realms, there is no defining the definer. It's like René Descartes tried to doubt the doubter to realize that you cannot doubt the isolated thinking subject. And even though Hegel years later said the isolated thinking subject, the concept that it's isolated comes from the notion that there has to be a collectivity first, But I can tell you that René Descartes found a portal. People don't realize René Descartes, there should be a giant statue of him. I don't care if he was a good person, his personality or not. I don't know who he was on a personal level. I don't, But I know that his contributions were so vast that he requires to just be remembered. That means kids are like, "Who's this giant statue in the street?" And they'll be like, "It's René Descartes," and they suddenly realize the contribution of philosophers even to the evolution of mathematical language. Because as far as I'm concerned, a philosopher is not a master storyteller, a master story finder. Philosophers are not here to give answers. They are here to add to the question archive. Answers, really, you can't give an answer to this world because it's changing. That means if somebody said, "What's the meaning of life?" I'll be like, "Change." That's it. What other meaning would you like in a changing system? It's like, "What are you doing today?" "Changing." They're like, "You're changing, something in your life." You're like, "No, the world is just changing. That's what I'm doing. I'm changing with this giant rock I'm on. you know. Like, I'll tell you something. I'm a person who personally doesn't like a bed. And that doesn't mean I don't like I don't sleep in beds, but I'm saying like the reason I don't like it is because for me the best bed would be anti-gravity. I could totally see in the future people sleeping with their back not being on a board. Like it's, do you know what I mean? Like there's something about anti-gravity technology that is going to make sitting down, it's going to have so much energy. We're going to have so much energy if there is no pressure, you know? So I'm telling you, like when I sleep, because here's the thing about sleep. In their sleep, the person could roll, could move, and when you sleep in a certain position at night, your body is for 8 hours practicing being in that position, right? So for me, even though the pillow is comfortable, even though the bed could be comfortable, but for me, the best kind of bed is just hovering in the air. That means this may sound super silly, but I wouldn't be surprised if like in 100 years people their beds are again just anti-gravity kind of spaces. They just jump into the air, and it's like how you jump in your bed and you just like you stay on your bed. So it's like that. You jump into the air and you sleep like naked in the air or something. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those things where we don't have pressure. We don't have shape outside of the being shaping it. You know. That means honestly, one of the coolest cultural transformations will be technology that allows the person to hover. When we become a civilization that through technological means we create an ability to hover things or just hover in the air, that would be the coolest. That is the first thing we got to do, honestly. For me, I could totally see a civilization of people with jetpacks going to work, just jumping on the top of buildings going to work. And the jetpacks, imagine, have they are not flame fire powered; they are sound powered, so they don't burn your feet. You know. Right now, we need to develop a global network of advanced communicators. Then from there on, we have the backup system in place. Once we have the backup system, we go on to the next level, and that's it. We create a self-sustaining civilization, then we party. That's the whole plan. We create a civilization that is advanced. Guys, I'm telling you, people don't know this, but I'm going to give a lot of talks in the future on interior design and just pretty much just design in general. So right now I'm just walking through the wastelands of philosophy or the pure lands of philosophy. But after that, I'm gonna dedicate many years of my life probably to design. But let us now in this moment wonder about the design. Your attention is magnificent, and the secret of it is concentration. And if you master concentration, you require to master patience. And if you have patience, you never lose. You can't. It's an impossible to lose if you're patient. Like very, very rarely you lose. And when I say lose, not that you're fighting in a win-lose situation. You lose whenever it is not win-win. When it's not win-win, here's the thing. Your species is your collective self. And anybody who hurts the collective self, it makes the collective self angry. You see, there needs to be a gentleness, and there needs to be a conquering of anger. This was something that I was honestly, like I can tell you that I think Tibetan Buddhism, there were certain content and wisdoms in that tradition that my eyes perceived in 2013 that I can tell you I abandoned the concept. Like, how can I tell you? It's as if for how long can you see inefficiency? For how long? For how long can a human being be comfortable with the slow movement when in their inner realms they're seeing a faster movement? That means whenever in your inner realms you see you can do something, like that's why the mind is there. The mind is there to give multiple dimensions to the body so the body can decide in which dimension or probability it acts. It acts through. There's a story of this guru and his disciples back in the day. It's a Vedic story. And this angry man, not angry, but this intense person, as if like some business mogul who decided to suddenly become enlightened, you know, this business mogul or whatever, this intense personality, he just comes into the temple, and while the guru and disciples are in some sort of session, like devotional session to the moment or whatever, like mantra or prayer or something, not prayer, but recitation. The person comes and shouts at the guru, and he's like, "Hey, enlightened guru, give me a mantra. If you're enlightened, you have to give me a mantra right now. Give me a mantra that's gonna make me see the ultimate truth." And the guy's like, "Excuse me, who are you? Or how did you get it?" The guy doesn't say that, but the person says, "You're not ready." As if you're chasing the butterfly. What mantra? You don't even notice the value of the mantra. When you chase for something, you have become an animal. This is why, whether you chase, in some sense, objects, subjects, people, events, even the future doesn't like it if you chase it. But the future likes being you living the moment. That means sometimes it's not that there is failure, it's just that some beings are not authorized to do some things in this realm. So the guy goes and says, "Give me a mantra," and the person says, "You're not ready," to the guru. And then the guy is so persistent. He says, "You have to give me a mantra." It's like literally the person's never lost a sale, so now he's not going to lose this argument, right? And so the guru suddenly thinks to himself, he's like, "Okay, this is weird. This guy came out of nowhere and is repetitively asking this compared to how every day has been going on in this temple. This is a unique event. Maybe I should listen to this guy." So the guru sits down, closes his eyes, and a certain mantra comes to his mind, a Vedic mantra. And he says to this guy, "This is the mantra, go and say it." But then he says, "You're not ready though." Like he feels something is off, the guru. The guy goes into this room, like this meditation room, and for a week, like ridiculous, with no, it's strange, nothing, like I think there was no food or anything. It was the guy was in some weird state. The guy goes in the room and da 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 da, like mantra, 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 like a machine. After a week of just repetitively saying this mantra, this guy leaves the room, and the disciples and the guru, they're all impressed of it, and this guy's commitment and discipline. And he comes out, and there's something different, as if he's repeated the holy name to such a degree that it's as if there is something pure about this person's, like there's a glow. The disciples say there was a glow about the guy. The guy comes and says, "I see it now. I am Brahman. When I look at you, Guru, you are Brahman. When I look at the disciples, they are Brahman. When I look at like this temple is Brahman. I see everything as Brahman. I see it. I'm enlightened. The guru feels something out, something's off. And he gives the guy a bag of vegetables, you know, he gives him a bag, and gives the guy the money of the temple, and he's like, hey man, go buy vegetables for everyone. You know, let's eat vegetables tonight now that, yeah, everything is Brahman, you know. The guy's like, okay, Brahman is asking me to go buy vegetables. All right, I'll do it. And he goes. And the guy's walking with the vegetable bag in his hand to go to the vegetable market and buy vegetables for the whole temple, you know. And as the guy walks, he sees like a bird on a branch, and he's like, Brahman. He's like, the mantra's like repeating in his head. He said it so many times. He sees in some sense, a sort of, what do you call it? He sees the bird. He sees God in the bird. He sees like the movement of the bird is God. You know, he sees the wind move the trees and all that. It's like the leaves. He's like, oh my God, that's God. He's seen God in everything, pretty much, right? And then as he's going, suddenly there's this sound from the vegetable market. Pretty much people are running away from the vegetable market. There's a crazy elephant in the market. And the guy, while this guy's like, he's seeing Brahman in the trees and in nature and in everything, you know, suddenly one person comes up to him. He's like, hey man, don't go to the vegetable market. You know, there's a crazy elephant. You know, like, are you insane? Don't walk that way. You know, the guy's like, don't worry, man. I'm Brahman. I see Brahman. And the guy's like, okay, whatever. You know, the guy runs. This guy's like, don't worry, you know, Brahman is here. Oh man, that's so silly. The guy sees Brahman and everything, so he's like, don't worry, I got this. He goes, he's like, I'm enlightened. What's this elephant gonna do? What's Brahman gonna do? I'm Brahman. How's Brahman gonna hurt himself? You know? And the guy says, don't worry about it, buddy. And he's like, go on, move on, civilian. You know? And he goes into the vegetable stand, and the elephant has calmed down. And he just very calmly, he's saying the mantra in his head, and he goes to every vegetable stand, and he puts the vegetables in the bag, and he puts the money on the counters of every vegetable stand. He takes the vegetables, you know, and he has the vegetables in his bag, and as he's about to leave, he suddenly looks to his left, and the elephant is staring at him, and he just freezes, like he's for a second just like shocked a bit, and he can hear himself in his inner realm saying the mantra. And there he looks at him, looks at the elephant, and says, I see Brahman in you. I see Brahman in myself. I see Brahman in this moment. And there's a pause. There's like an intense moment of eye contact between an elephant and a human being. But remember, this elephant was so tortured that it couldn't comprehend, you know. And anyways, what happens is, in that moment, this guy's like, I see Brahman. You know, in that moment, the elephant grabs him, and throws him, slams him. The elephant hits the guy. Keep in mind, the elephant is an elephant. This guy falls to the corner, you know, and he's hurt. Suddenly, there's some passerbys there, and they're like, holy shit, this guy just gets slammed by an elephant into, like, you know, somewhere. And so they quickly take the guy, and the guy, like, I don't know what happens to the elephant or whatever, but the next day, the guy with the cast on his arm, he goes to the guru angry. And he's like, the mantra you said didn't work, you know. I want like it's like, you're full of shit, man. You know, what is this? You know? And the guru's like, hey, calm down. Tell me what happened. And the guy says the whole story of how he saw Brahman and everything, and he went to the store, you know, and the elephant, he saw Brahman even in the elephant, and he was saying the mantra, and the elephant just like slammed him. You know? The guru suddenly starts laughing, you know, and this guy's getting angry. His ego's back again, you know. And he's like, "Why are you laughing? You know, this isn't funny. You know, what the fuck, man?" And the guru says, "So let me get this straight. You saw Brahman in me, in the disciples, in the temple, in the bird, in the tree branches, in the wind. You saw Brahman in the elephant, in yourself, even in the vegetables. But you didn't see Brahman in the guy who came and told you don't go there?" And the guy suddenly gets shocked and he's like, "No way. I didn't listen to my sign." You know? So that's the thing. That's the point of the thing, right? It's not something you declare on yourself. It's when the self is not there, everything is here and you see it. As Zen Master Dogen says, to walk Buddha's path, study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to awaken to the nature of all things. So study the self means notice you're a subject, but as you go to really notice the subject, you see the subject is based on the object and the object is based on the world, so technically the subject is the world. So that's when you come to study yourself, you forget the self. You see the self and the world are inseparable. But then, he says, once you forget the self, you awaken to the nature of all things, and this is how you wake up from the linguistic simulation. That's how you get the carrot at the end of the stick, enlightened stick. You stop chasing heaven horizontally, and you move through a vertical dimension. As you move through a vertical dimension, the value of the horizontal changes. Horizontal dimension changes. But I will tell you, I have simplified through a universal mathematical language this whole plane of existence moving in 4 dimensions. I have yet to see something that transcends these 4 dimensions. I call it the ring of the absent heaven. And it's these 4 symbols: 0, 1, 2, and the infinity symbol. And what it means is, as a pilot of consciousness, as a human being, as an attention of an unknown mind to a known embodied landscape, pretty much the attention can experience 4 kinds of dimensional frameworks. What does that mean? That means you're either noticing 0, which means space. A nihilist sees 0 through the 0 dimension. Either you're seeing through the 0-1, which you can say the 1 dimension. So where there is 0, there's 0-1, and then we have 1, you know? And 1 is the solipsist. The solipsist that thinks everything they are seeing, that's the only thing that's real. The solipsist is seeing pretty much singularity, you know? Now, after the 1 dimension, there is the 1-2 dimension, which is a double duality. The first duality is 0-1, then the next duality is 1-2. So that means you first have to become comfortable with the space in the room, then you got to be comfortable with a single thing being in the room, then you got to be comfortable with that single thing being able to acknowledge its shadow, its reflection, which is a perpendicular dimension. And once you're comfortable with every individual thing, like you can see an object and be like, all right, that object is just that object. You can see a person and be like, all right, that person is that person. You know, you can look at a world and be like, all right, this world is this world, you know. So that's the ability of the one dimension, the singular mind, you know? Now, check this out. Everybody who's conditioned into language and society is in the two dimension. Language is a dualistic system. That means language requires a point A and a point B, or it can't exist. It needs comparison and reference. So that means after you're comfortable with the emptiness of the room, then you're comfortable with a singular phenomena being in the room, then you're comfortable with multiple singular phenomena being in the room, then you become comfortable with duality. You are comfortable with duality at that point. After you're comfortable with duality, you are at a crossroads. You can either reverse engineer back from duality into the singular void, or you can keep going forward and accelerating the evolutionary expression and the advancement of communication, where we find the clarity through the infinite void. That means there's two exits out of duality, two exits and entrances. There is the singular void and the infinite void, pretty much. That means the one dimension and the infinite dimension. And after you have duality, you don't need any 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like, you don't need all the other numbers for different dimensions, you know? After you have duality, you can endlessly have infinity. Infinity is duality's liberation. But you can say singularity and oneness is duality's nullification. It's not, it's liberating, but you've also gotten rid of a lot of things. So life is not about just hovering as space before it ends. You know, it's like we're here to participate in the event. You know, and if you can, as the Sufis say, the person who had the pearl, the person who actually had that uh, that had realized, the person who had the pearl was the true person who had the pearl was not the person who had it alone in the mountains, was the person who had it in the busy market, who could hold the pearl still while they were in the busy market. They could remember nature before man's interference with its own definition, with his own definition. You know, that's the thing. We are natural beings. If we were robots right now, pretty much my whole talk would be 0, 1, 0. Can you imagine 2 hours of 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 1, 1, 0, 0, 0, 1, 1, 1? It's like singing poetry for the robotic realm, you know? It's so easy to be a poet in a binary language, you know? I'm telling you guys, this ring of the absent heaven, it's also cyclical. So I am perhaps maybe, um, I could potentially be one of the first people in this plane who is treating the dimensions as if they are seasonal. So science is seeing fixed dimensions, fixed frameworks. There's constants that is used in scientific language. But I am seeing the dimensions as being alive. So that's the thing, because I would have loved to just go through the scientific context. Then I realized really how my attention is actually science is very important, of course, but it is not the it cannot explain the language, because let's say you're a scientist right now, you know, and you have you have done the best experiment, the most accurate experiment possible. Now, you are bringing that experiment to where? To a society where we're not just a rational species. We are irrational because we have emotional spikes, because we have emotions. and at the same time, as Robert M. Persick says, people's awareness is like a handful of sand from a beach with endless sand, something like that. All right, guys. So I've decided to go into a Shakespeare quote tunnel. To be or not to be. Oh my God, this is from his work. Wait a minute. All right, there we go. William Shakespeare says, to do a great right, do a little wrong. Shakespeare says all the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts, his acts being 7 ages. William Shakespeare says ignorance is the curse of God, knowledge is the wing wherewith we fly to heaven. William Shakespeare says things done well and with care exempt themselves from fear. Shakespeare says, when we are born, we cry that we are come to this great stage of fools. Wow. So that's why babies cry, because they feel they've been pushed into ignorance. William Shakespeare says cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. This quote is the essence of life, guys, and the essence of the best action movies as well. Because honestly, fear doesn't help anybody. Fear is just something, it's like a fly you gotta blow out of your atmosphere, Shakespeare says, love looks not with the eyes, but with the mind, and therefore is winged, Cupid painted blind. Shakespeare says, hell is empty, and all the devils are here. Holy shit. Hell is empty, and all the devils are here. That means hell is a hollow idea, and it's nature of man who has chosen to be cruel. A fool thinks himself to be wise, but a wise man knows himself to be a fool. I mean, technically, we're all born on a stage of fools, aren't we? So we're technically all wise. William Shakespeare says, we know what we are, but know not what we may be. Well said. That's why life is worth living, to just see what its unknown dimensions hold. Because I'm telling you guys, this is how magnificent life is. I wanted to be a soccer player as a kid. Like I had a certain vision of trying to just become a soccer player. I concluded as the most healthy life, but then life totally turned me around, and I suddenly noticed that there's a mind here. It can't just be only physical activity and tasks. So anyways, stop chasing the heavenly carrot, sit in stillness and silence, wonder for the first time, if you were on an island, how would you live? you know That means you have to move yourself. Technically, you become the ultimate pilot of your moment. When you pilot your moment as your whole moment, you don't have individual karma. I honestly feel this is the case. That when you are not a thought, what is becoming what? There's no karma. There's no karma to consciousness of energy that cannot be created or destroyed. And there's a quote from William Shakespeare. He says, a ship can sit at harbor, but that's not what ships are made for. A human being can choose not to walk towards an advanced civilization, but we are designed for one. We are designed to advance this, whatever it is, this 4 billion-year-old science project called civilization. We can't just find hedonistic joy in the inner realms. It's like, why? What's the point of the whole world being in front of our eyes if we're not meant to engage it, or advance it? Because sometimes I think people all want life to be easy, not realizing if life was easy, then why do you need to be here? If everything was perfect, why do you need to be here? Why do you need to have free will if everything is known? You know, if we want to go hide in the cave of truth, not realizing that the world is it was never untrue. When was life never ever untrue? You know what I mean? It's just a linguistic simulation that where how we extract our meaning from phenomena as language. So, anyways, guys, thanks for listening. One last thing to say: in the subtitle, I say a truth to behold. And really, can truth be held? Can you hold what is true? Truth is holding you. As if like who it's like, it's like it's like truth was in the room before the illusion. Because when a person trusts life, the furthest vision of the moment becomes the genius of the miracle. So right now we are, a person can judge themselves through various contexts, of course, but I think the simplest thing is a human being, just like how Shaolin monks would train. They would train their techniques, fighting techniques. I think human beings need to now go towards a sort of um, spirit of an art form, if I can say. That's how human beings communicate rhythmically. That means it is true, some scholars have said habit is the decay of the mind, but also habit is the crystallization of skill in a certain dimension, of course. So now imagine you are like a human being and you're looking at the world and you're like, okay, so the world can be unknown, can be known, and that includes the self in it too. And if everything can be known and unknown, You know, if the world can be unknown and unknown, and the self can be known and unknown, and if the world can be simple and complex, and the self can be simple and complex, then pretty much you have to master existing simply and master experiencing complexly. Master even complex existence. So you gotta, whatever the idea of simplicity means to you, you have to cultivate it. Literally, like warriors after battle, sometimes they would just sit down to have the echoes of the savage brutality they saw in their mind to just wash off by a sort of time of stillness. You know? It's like a person who's been through an intense event and suddenly just sits in the aftermath in that stillness and silence. There has been times where I can tell you I have spoken to moments of being, not even people, like events. Because it's kind of strange. If we take the event, I coined the term eventum and the eventron, you know? And so I was saying that if we look at an eventum, the smallest unitable component of the psyche, that means I'm saying our outer realms or bodies are made of atoms, but our inner realms are made of events. And I realized nobody has connected the word eventum, event, with the word atom. So I just called it eventum. Yeah. So that event means technically we are worlds communicating to each other through selves. And we're selves communicating to each other through subjects. And we're subjects communicating to each other through objects. And the objects have as much value as they have in the light in the room. That means if you put a flashlight on a painting in a dark room, the moment has value and truth in it. But you take that flashlight off, what truth can you see? So anyways, guys, thanks for listening. Um, and trust life and its dimensions open up pretty much. Trust your moment. That is wisdom's glow. So yeah, blessings.